Hey guys, I just wanted to do a quick Stauch trial recap of days 4 and 5 so that I'm all caught up because there is a lot of trials going on right now at one time. So I just want to start with Letecia Stauch trial, day 4 and day 5. The first person to be called to the witness stand was Kelly Smith, a crime scene technician for the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office in Florida. In that jurisdiction, Gannon Stauch's body was found inside a suitcase under a bridge. Smith described the scene where the suitcase was found and the condition of Gannon's body at the time, including the discovery of a bullet in the victim's head, and there was also two more in the pillow. They brought the green suitcase out as evidence, still sealed in an evidence bag, and walked around and showed it to the jury. Here's a picture of the bridge that Gannon's body was found under, and in this other photo right there is a picture of Gannon in bed. That pillow and those sheets were in the suitcase with Gannon. The second witness called was TREVOR SEIFORT, a senior laboratory crime analyst from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. He explained his process of evidence collection from Gannon's body to confirm his identity, but the agency couldn't do so because the body was decomposing. Gannon had to be identified by a rib bone, which took multiple tests and several days to maintain just to develop a partial profile. 9 markers from the rib of Gannon were compared to DNA obtained from the bio-matched Gannon. Bio meaning the biological parents of Gannon, which they got that DNA from their toothbrushes, I believe they brought in for them. The third witness was hotel front desk attendant Alexis Pack. Alexis worked at the Candlewood Suites in Pensacola, Florida. Pack is shown the form from where someone checks into a hotel. It is filled out by the person checking in, that person being Letecia Stauch. Letecia checked in at 12:23 a.m. on February 4th as an employee of the Ford Motor Company in order to obtain a discount. She lied on the form. She said she was driving a Nissan Altima, and then she checked out at 11:11 a.m. on the same day. Here is a picture of the Candlewood Suites in Pensacola and the car that Letecia said she was driving. The fourth witness on the stand was El Paso Sheriff's Office Lieutenant Jason Hess. He got involved in the Stauch case on January 28th, the day after the call for a runaway. He cold called Letecia to follow up on information and also had a face-to-face follow-up with Letecia. He went to Starbucks on January 28th where Letecia and Al were meeting with detectives. He wanted to look at Gannon's phone to see if he searched anywhere that he could potentially be. Letecia told Hess that Gannon left the house between 3:15 and 4 p.m. She told him she was taking care of the burn area on the carpet from the candle fallen when Gannon left. He saw Stauch moving things out of the house into a white van. He says there were a couple people at the van helping her move things. Stauch's Aunt Brenda Ackward was in a Nissan car. Harley, Stauch's bio daughter, assisting Stauch's mom Deborah and Dakota Lowry. He said Letecia made mention that she tried to put the fire out with a blanket. She told him Gannon had something on the front of his shirt from the fire incident. Hess said he's been in similar situation where a child as young as Gannon, 11 years old, is missing or run away for the first time, that the parents' emotions are usually more present and visual, looking for a child. It really didn't seem like Letecia was very emotional, but she was rather more like calm, cool, and collected. Hess said he believes he has worked with people suffering from dissociative identity disorder, but doesn't know how many. He doesn't think Stauch was suffering from dissociative identity disorder when he interacted with her in January of 2020. Our next witness is Leslie Hicks, the principal of Mountain Ridge Middle School. She said Letecia applied for a resource teacher position. Hicks met with Stauch in person for that interview. She messaged Letecia January 16th, 2020, asking her to contact about the resource teacher position. Letecia responded that she would email her. At this point, Stauch had completed her interview and Hicks was in the process of checking her references. She recalls Letecia put down Connie Huddle as a reference. When Hicks tried to call Letecia Stauch's listed reference, Connie Huddle, in South Carolina, the caller ID on her phone came up with the name Eugene Stauch. A female answered a number when Hicks tried to call this Connie. She remembered hearing kids in the background, and when Hicks asked if it was Connie, they said no, said the call was only a few seconds long. In the interview process, it was listed that Letecia had a doctorate from Liberty University. Hicks said Letecia signed her emails Dr. Stauch. The school offered Stauch the position. Letecia's first day of work was on the 22nd. Hicks saw Letecia last on Friday, January 24th at the school. She said her demeanor was appropriate and didn't seem to be going through any mental health crisis. That was 3 days before Gannon's disappearance. On Monday, January 27th, date of Gannon's reported disappearance, Hicks got a message from Stauch at 3 a.m. saying, "I'm sorry for the time of night message, but my stepfather passed away. Someone hit him with a car while he was walking. I can update you at a later time." She asked her if Letecia needed a sub, and Letecia, with attitude, said, "It's apparent all of my family lives on the East Coast. I am trying to get there." And she also said, "Yes, it's my parent. I can't believe that would not be an assumption in a time like this." Hicks told her again that she was sorry and couldn't make assumptions. She described Letecia's tone through the text as angry. She had no other contact with Letecia after that. The next witness was Kevin Clark, Director of Crime Strategies and Intelligence for the 4th Judicial District Attorney's Office. In 2020, he was with Colorado Springs PD. He was asked to assist as lead analyst on the Stauch case. He assisted with search warrant to cell phone providers for call detail records. He said the number Letecia put down as a reference for Connie Huddle is the number of Gannon Stauch's phone. The next witness was Sergeant Patrol Supervisor Christopher Ganstein with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. He says on January 30th he was asked to start a surveillance operation on Letecia Stauch to follow her and see what she was doing. He was following Letecia riding in the back seat of Harley's car. He said it was weird because there was only 2 people in the car and she, Letecia, was sitting in the back seat. She was slouched down. She wasn't sitting like a normal person would sit. She wasn't sitting in the front seat either. He said that behavior is common when they're following fugitives. Avoiding detection would be a good term. He said the car drove to a clothing store off of Woodbend and Academy in Colorado Springs. He said he had his team inside and outside the store waiting to make contact with Letecia and Harley, her daughter, who was driving the car. Letecia walked out of the store, and Ganstein said she was surprised. She kind of froze when she saw them. He said Letecia began walking backwards and then sprinted away and threw the keys across the parking lot. She was yelling to Harley to ask for her lawyer and not answer any questions. He said Harley was visibly upset and they had to calm her down. He said they accomplished what they were supposed to do, which was obtain the cell phone and the car they had warrants for. Ganstein was asked if he noticed Letecia suffering a mental health crisis or disease, to which he said no. He was then cross-examined by the defense and was asked if he was qualified as an expert in mental health or diseases, to which he said no. The next witness is El Paso County Coroner Dr. Leon Kelley. Dr. Kelley spoke about when he became involved in the criminal investigation of Gannon Stauch's murder. He said the medical examiner's office in Florida weren't able to definitively identify Gannon, so Dr. Kelley's office helped and were able to positively identify Gannon. The next witness is Marissa Williams, who was a detective with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office in early 2020. She spoke about when Letecia came in for an interview with the sheriff's office. She said she was evasive with questions. She was, I would say, upset, but not in the same way that you would expect when a parent is missing a child. She also said that it appeared Mrs. Stauch was bothered that she had come in and talked with law enforcement, and she was more concerned about her well-being than her missing son. She added she thinks Letecia answered questions competently. She understood the questions that were being asked. She said there was no indication she did not understand the questions. I think she fully understood the gravity of the situation. The next witness called to the stand is Janine Sanchez. In January 2020, she was living in the Lorson Ranch neighborhood, and she was also working with Harley Hunt, Letecia Stauch's daughter. She said her and Harley picked up Letecia from the hospital on Wednesday, January 29th. Sanchez said Letecia got in the car. Just jokingly, Letecia, was joking about saying basically, I hope you don't think we're a bunch of murderers. Sanchez said that Letecia started using Harley's phone. Then Letecia sent a text to her from the back seat asking if she could stay at Sanchez's home. Sanchez said she found this weird and strange because all three of them were in the car together. Sanchez said Harley was just wanting to stay at my house because she really didn't feel comfortable at her own house. I'm not sure why her mom wanted to stay at my house. With the texting thing, that was kind of odd, so I just let them both stay. Last and certainly not least was Letecia's neighbor, Nicole Mobley, who, in my opinion, was the MVP of the day. Nicole Mobley, who identified herself as Letecia's former neighbor in Fountain's Lorson Ranch neighborhood, said that she first met Stauch in December 2019 after Stauch dropped some clothes off at her house for her niece. She said she posted on a Facebook neighborhood page seeking clothes for her niece who just moved in with her. When Stauch's daughter replied and offered to bring over some clothing, Mobley told the court that Letecia showed up at her home instead of Harley and handed over the clothing. She said that it was really odd because the defendant began talking to her about her private life, although they had never met before. The next time Mobley spoke to Stauch was in late January 2020 after Gannon had been reported missing. Mobley said she messaged the defendant and asked her where she should be looking for Gannon and was immediately blocked. Mobley testified that she had met Gannon Stauch on one occasion before his disappearance, and that her and her husband spent hours looking for him when he was reported missing. After Mobley was blocked, she stated she messaged Stauch again several weeks later on a new Facebook profile on February 19, 2020, to continue asking questions regarding Gannon, which eventually led to Stauch asking her neighbor to lie to law enforcement on her behalf. Mobley took note of Letecia's Facebook posts, often mentioning how much she didn't like Landon, Gannon's mother. Mobley used that as leverage to get Letecia to trust her. She asked Letecia if she thought that Landon was responsible, and Letecia told her that a man was waiting for them when her and Gannon got home. Mobley said it obviously sounded very fishy to her, but she kept telling Letecia what she wanted to hear, asking Letecia if Letecia thought that Landon had sent this man to take her kids. Stauch told Mobley via text messages that were displayed in court that a man had broken into her home, assaulted her, and took Gannon along with a suitcase. The story Stauch told Mobley was similar to the one she told her husband and Gannon's father, Al Stauch. Eventually, during the conversation with Mobley, Stauch writes that she needs a witness for police to believe her story, saying that they're focusing too much on her and in other places. At one point, even offering Mobley money, any price, to call her husband and report that she had seen Gannon getting into a car with a strange man the night of January 27th. What if you just said you remembered something suspicious seeing this picture and explained the description and you didn't think it was relevant until now because the kid had the same cover? Stauch wrote after sending a photo of Gannon with the blankets his body was later found with. I swear to you I didn't do this. I just need help with someone getting this out there so they can start posting in other states. Mobley claimed she did not believe Stauch's story during their text conversation and stated that after receiving those messages from Stauch, she reported them and turned them over to law enforcement. And that sums up day 4. Now, starting with day 5, the first witness that the prosecution calls up is Dr. Susan IGNACIO. She is an associate medical examiner in Florida. She took part in conducting the autopsy of Gannon Stauch. She conducted autopsy on March 18, 2020. She's looking at pictures of Gannon, saying she noticed signs of decomposition. Says bones were showing, pointing to a laceration on his chest, pointing to a number of other wounds. She corrected and said not a laceration, a sharp force injury, says they are wounds caused by a knife or blade. Decomposition had made it hard to identify some of the injuries. She said that Gannon had defensive wounds on his hands, that it looked like he was trying to put his hands up to guard himself. He had several wounds on either of his hands, his shoulder, his upper back, his chest. The sharp force injury on his upper back was a deeper one of his injuries, she said. He fractured his left sixth rib. She said that he sustained some blunt force head injuries. She says there was blunt force trauma on Gannon's right back side of his head. She found some skull fractures and says it would take a lot of force to cause these fractures with blunt force strikes. Doctor says Gannon suffered from 18 sharp force injuries. She counted 4 blunt force lacerations as well. She then points to a gunshot wound. The cause of death was gunshot wound and blunt trauma to the head. And the contributing factors were the 18 sharp injuries, death by homicide. They also conducted a toxicology screening, and they found hydrocodone in his liver and acetaminophen. She found it very unusual that an 11-year-old would have that in his system. She did say there are some cough medicines that do contain that, but it's very unlikely that a doctor would give it to an 11-year-old. The doctor said the blunt force head injuries happened before he died. Cross-examination begins, and the doctor agrees that this looks like a violent death and that there's no pattern to the injuries. And while there's no pattern to the injuries, the doctor said they were targeted towards the upper body, head, and chest areas. She says they appear to be intentional and look like the injuries in places where you would try to kill somebody. The jurors asked the doctor about the burn marks on his skin, but she says she couldn't detect it because of the decomposition. She says normally hydrocodone and Tylenol would be metabolized and out of his system in 12 hours, but he died with it still in his system. Al Stauch also gets called to the stand again for a quick moment, saying that during woodworking, he cut off part of his finger in the past and he was given a hydrocodone prescription directly related to the finger injury and kept it on his nightstand, but he never finished the prescription. He says that the prescription was hidden in the nightstand and only he and Letecia knew where they were. Al says he would never give Gannon hydrocodone. The next witness to be called to the stand is Andrew Cohen, a special agent for the FBI since 2014. District Attorney Michael Allen said Cohen will be testifying more than once during this trial. Special Agent Cohen said he was involved in the wiretap investigation into Letecia Stauch. He said it was apparent that Letecia was switching the way she was communicating after Gannon's disappearance. He said Letecia had her original phone taken by law enforcement shortly after Gannon was reported missing. He said Letecia then bought a phone from Walmart in Trinidad, Colorado, then left the state. He said the phone was purchased using a name that wasn't hers. He said people who are involved in criminal activity will oftentimes change their phone numbers or download applications to text and or call to avoid law enforcement. He said these applications don't install themselves, and these are very intentional acts. 4 wiretap phone calls initiated by Letecia in February 2020 were then played. Cohen said the number that Letecia called was associated to a website for fake polygraphs. On one of the wiretap phone calls, Letecia is asking about a report she made to the fake polygraph company that included questions about infidelity. If I remember the questions correctly, I believe she had asked for the fake polygraph to say, "Did you hurt your stepson?" They had told her that the questions they had didn't represent infidelity. She insisted that her questions were about infidelity and that maybe they got the report wrong. She asked if it was just then deleted after that. Some other questions she had asked were, did you participate in any way in causing your stepson's death? And did you participate in any way in causing harm to your stepson? The man on the other end of the phone call tells Stauch that they can't release her fake polygraph due to potential illegal activities, and she keeps insisting that it wasn't illegal questions, it was about infidelity. Clearly, Letecia is trying to separate herself from these polygraph questions by saying that those weren't her questions. Apparently, Letecia told Al Stauch that she had passed a polygraph at one point. Next is El Paso Detective Christina Perry. Detective Perry used Undercover Profile to see if they could get intel from Facebook groups related to Gannon's disappearance. Detective Perry was present when Al Stauch called investigators to share his concerns about Letecia's car missing. She said that Harley Hunt, Letecia's biological daughter, refused to give information or respond to requests for an interview with investigators on January 28th. But she talked to Harley while at their house. She would talk about things like her career aspirations, but if the detective asked about anything related to her brother, she wouldn't talk to her. On January 29th, Detective Perry said Letecia came to the sheriff's office in her Volkswagen Tiguan, the car police searched for and couldn't find the night before. Detective Perry said there were still water droplets on the car and it looked like it had been freshly washed. She says Letecia would tell them she would come to do an interview and then not show up or come late. They noticed money transfers as well that had them worried she'd flee, so they got a warrant to track the vehicle she was driving. She also said she went through clips of the surveillance video from the neighbor's home a few away from the Stauch home. In the clips, you can see Letecia walk to the vehicle and back the vehicle into the driveway again and then walked to the vehicle and got inside. The vehicle left at 10:15 a.m. on January 27th. The vehicle is then seen returning around 2:30 p.m. Perry said Letecia got out of the vehicle, and there was also a shadow with what appears to be Gannon stepping outside the vehicle. They also showed the surveillance around 3:11 p.m. on January 27th when the school bus drives by, and Perry testified what appears to be Lena walking. Lena is Gannon's younger sister. Perry said Lena walked up to the home, went inside briefly, and then Lena left the home and was outside the home for about 19 minutes. Harley then arrived around 4:37 p.m. and is inside the home for about 15 minutes. Then Harley and Lena leave in a vehicle just before 5 p.m. The next clips are of the following day, January 28th. Letecia and Harley are repositioning vehicles in the driveway, and Letecia leaving for the airport to pick up Al. During cross-examination, Perry testified that she watched more than 40 hours of surveillance video and did not hear gunshots. She was also asked if the utility workers outside the home were interviewed and heard gunshots. She said she didn't know. Next was El Paso detective Peter VIRGIL. He claimed that during the search of Stauch's home on January 28th, he could smell bleach in Gannon's bedroom when he first arrived. He also talks about blood stains on Gannon's mattress. And for the final witness, reporter Spencer Wilson. Spencer Wilson, formerly a reporter with KKTV and now with CBS 4, is now testifying about his interview with Letecia Stauch back in 2020. Wilson said that the two of them met when Stauch approached him to chastise his coverage. If you remember, he did the interview with Letecia on the front lawn of the home. She's has her back turned to the camera and she has sunglasses on, and Spencer is interviewing her. He testified that during his interview with Stauch, he absolutely felt Stauch was more concerned with her own appearance than Gannon. I talked to neighbors who were more worried about Gannon, Wilson said. Spencer Wilson said Stauch wanted to do a second interview where she was crying the second time. And that's it for day 4 and day 5. And I also just want to note that some of the witnesses may be out of order, and I only picked things that were notable. So if I miss anything, I apologize. I just didn't think it was as important. But thank you so much. Please like and subscribe to my channel. And if you like my work and would like to donate, the links are in the description. And have a good day, everyone. Thanks.